I'm going to pick up where I left off. So I encourage you, if you just listen to this particular message without listening to any other message that came previous to this message, I encourage you to go to the website, if you're listening to this on the archives, and catch up. I don't have any time to review, so I'm counting on the people that have been with me to know exactly where I left off as we move forward in this young universe, young earth section of this last day's teaching that I'm doing presently. If this is the first time you watched, I don't know how many messages in the archives under the subject last days, probably around close to 400. And we have a long way to go. So like I said, I encourage you to, if you're interested in just this section, because that's what you've been listening to because you're a new viewer, then I think this is probably around 10 or 12 messages already in this particular subject, maybe more than that. But if you want to listen to the whole series, go back to the first video or read the written material that's available also, which you can find on the website. Now let's just jump right in. Let's look at the distant starlight problem. Well, this much I'll say. You believe in a young universe and a young earth, and not an old universe and an old earth? That's right. I believe in a young universe and a young earth. And I've been laying the groundwork, hopefully, convincing you why I believe it, that this is a young universe and a young earth. Everything that you see and what we live in or on has been around very long. One of the most common objections to a young universe is often called the distant starlight problem. There are galaxies in the universe that are incredibly far away. These distances are so extreme that even light would take billions of years to travel from these galaxies to the Earth. Yet, we do see these galaxies. This indicates that the light has traveled from there to here. Since this process is supposed to take billions of years, the universe must be at least billions of years old, much older than the biblical time scale. It is argued that distant starlight therefore supports the Big Bang story of origins. There are actually several different natural mechanisms that God might have used to get the starlight here in thousands of years. I'm not going to get to that right now. The point here is to show that the objection itself is vacuous. The argument that distant starlight disproves the biblical account of creation and supports an old Big Bang universe is based on faulty reasoning. First, notice that the distant starlight argument is based on the fallacious assumption of naturalism and uniformitarianism. It assumes that the light got here entirely by natural means and traveled at a constant rate over a constant distance, with time also being constant. Of course, it is possible that God may indeed have used natural means to get the light here. It may also be that some of the things assumed to be constant in time, such as the speed of light, which I already did a message on that before, they gave us a different option besides just the speed of light for time travel, but we're not going to get into that tonight either. It may also be that if some of the things assumed to be constant in time, such as the speed of light, are indeed constant. But is there any logical reason why we would automatically know beforehand that these must be the case? Remember that God created the lights in the sky to give light upon the earth. This happened during the creation week where God was creating in a supernatural way. Well, I believe, especially in the constellations that we could observe, He created those to put a message in the stars. And I preached several messages on that, which also can be found in the archives. You just don't have the good news about Jesus Christ in written word. You also can look up, well, not so much in today's world because of all the light around this globe. Now there's still places you can see amazingly the spectacular creation in the heavens that God created. But if you live in a big city or near a big city, it's really hard to see any of that anymore. You just see a few twinkling stars here and there. So the light, artificial light that we project out through man-made sources blocks that view. It puts a shady screen to block our view on what God created as a sign, as the word written, but in a different way, about His Son, Jesus Christ, and certain events that would happen through the course of time, our history. Remember that God created the lights in the sky to give us light upon the earth. This happened during the creation week where God was creating in a supernatural way. Science like to create theories basing on the natural constants that are out there. Well, you can't put that limitation on God because He has supernatural abilities to do things, and then if He wants to take those things that He created and give it some type of constant natural, let's just say, formula to follow, that's His right. He's the creator. The evolutionists insist that if we cannot show a naturalistic mechanism for a particular event of a creation week, like distant starlight, then the Bible cannot be trusted. This is unrealistic. Heads I win, tails you lose sort of argument. Since many of the events that happened during the creation week were supernatural in essence, it is irrational to demand a naturalistic explanation for them. It is ridiculous to argue that a supernatural explanation is wrong, because it cannot be explained by natural causes. This would be circular reasoning. Now, it is perfectly fine to ask the question, did God use natural means to get the starlight from galaxies to Earth? And if so, what is the mechanism? However, if no natural mechanism is apparent, this cannot be a legitimate criticism against supernatural creation, any more than a lack of natural mechanism for Christ's resurrection could be invalidated that event. Now, light travel time is also a problem for the Big Bang. There's another fatal flaw in using a light travel time argument like distant starlight to reject the Bible in favor of the Big Bang. Such an argument is simply self-refuting. This is because the Big Bang also has a light travel time problem. In the Big Bang, and they don't want to tell you about this, by the way, in the Big Bang, light is required to travel a distance much greater than should be possible within the Big Bang's own time frame of about 14 billion years. This serious difficulty for the Big Bang is called the horizon problem. I was not going to give you the horizon problem, but I'm going to briefly just read some of it to you. In the Big Bang model, the universe begins in an infinitely small state called a singularity, which then rapidly expands according to the Big Bang model. When the universe was still very small, it would have developed different temperatures in different locations. Let's suppose that point A is hot and point B is cold. Today the universe is expanded and points A and B are now widely separated. However, the universe is extremely uniform temperature at a great distance beyond the farthest known galaxies. So what it's saying, and I already mentioned this before, that here's one edge of the galaxy, and here's, the universe, and here's another, and here's the other side of the edge of the universe that we can see through the instruments that we have today that out there 300 miles above the Earth that are pointing and trying to see it to the edges of the universe that we can. What they're observing, though, is if the Big Bang started at a certain location, then as the billions of years passed by, the first location where the Big Bang originated should be the coolest. But it's not. If the Big Bang's in this part of the universe, and the newest created part of the universe is here, both are showing the same approximate temperatures when one should be much cooler than the other. And if you put a figure of billions of years, such as the Big Bang model, then something's wrong. Because by their own theory and their own explanations, they even concluded that this should be a lot cooler where the Big Bang originated and where, say, we're located. Even though that's not the edge of the universe according to the scientists. But just say where we're located should be a much warmer temperature than where the Big Bang originated. But that's not the case. It's pretty evenly distributed, the heat temperature, throughout the universe, which would not indicate a billions of years old universe because it's more even distributed. It would indicate a very young universe, not an old universe. Now, I probably just confused you some more with all this universe talk, but hopefully, as I continue reading this, you'll get a better understanding. However, the universe has extremely uniform temperature at a great distance beyond the farthest known galaxies. In other words, point A and B have almost exactly the same temperature today. Point A being out there where the Big Bang started, and point B is, let's just say where we're at right now, where this galaxy is located. We know this because we see electromagnetic radiation come from all directions in space in the form of microwaves. This is called the cosmic microwave background. The frequencies of radiation have a characteristic temperature of 2.7 K and are extremely uniform in all directions. In all directions. The temperature deviates by only 1 part in 10 to the 5th power. The problem is this: how did points A and B come to be the same temperature? They can only do this by exchanging energy. There are many systems where this happens. Consider an ice cube placed in a hot coffee. The ice heats up and the coffee cools down by exchanging energy. Likewise, point A can give energy to point B in the form of electromagnetic radiation, light. This is the fastest way of transferring energy, since nothing can travel faster than light. I argue that, but that's another subject. However, using the Big Bang supporters' own assumptions, such as uniformitarianism and naturalism, there has not been enough time in 14 billion years to get light from A to B. They are too far apart. This is a light travel time problem, and a very serious one. After all, A and B have almost the same temperature today, and so must have exchanged light multiple times. Big Bang supporters have proposed a number of conjectures which attempt to solve the Big Bang's travel light Problem. One of the most popular is called inflation. In inflationary models, the universe has two expansion rates, a normal rate and a fast inflation rate. The universe begins with the normal rate, which actually is quite rapid, but is slowed by comparison to the next phase. Then it enters the inflation phase, where the universe expands much more rapidly. At a later time, the universe goes back to the normal rate. So it begins with a normal rate, and then it goes to the next phase, the next inflational phase, where the universe expands very rapidly. And then after it's done that, it goes back to a normal rate. That's what they're saying. This all happens early on, long before stars and galaxies form. The inflation model allows point A and B to exchange energy during the first normal expansion, and to then be pushed apart during the inflation phase to the enormous distance at which they are located today. But the inflation model amounts to nothing more than storytelling. It's nothing more than another theory, with no supporting evidence at all. It is merely a speculation designed to align the Big Bang to conflicting observations. Moreover, inflation adds an additional set of problems and difficulties to the Big Bang model, such as what would cause such inflation, and how to turn it off in a graceful fashion. An increasing number of secular astrophysicists are rejecting inflation for these reasons and others. Clearly, the horizon problem remains a serious light travel problem for the Big Bang. They just don't have no answers. Like this author said, just storytelling. Started normal, then increased in speed rapidly, then it went back to normal, but we don't know how to explain how that happens. But just take our word for it. That's probably a pretty accurate possibility that's the way it did happen. Really, take your word for it. But you don't want to take our word for it that God created everything in 6 days. You don't want to take our word for it that this is a young universe, not an old universe. But we're supposed to take your word for it, because after all, you have a few degrees, which gives you the credibility that you know you're talking about. Nonsense. The critic may suggest that the Big Bang is a better explanation of origins than the Bible, since biblical creation has a light travel problem, distant starlight. Such an argument is not rational, since the Big Bang has a light travel time problem of its own. If both models have the same problem in essence, then the problem cannot be used to support one model over the other. Therefore, distant starlight cannot be used to dismiss the Bible in favor of the Big Bang. The belief in billions of years has a stranglehold on our culture today, even within the church. Many professing Christians have been taken in by the fallacious distant starlight argument or other claims involving anti-biblical assumptions. A point, in fact, is that what the gap theory has done. It gave up the fight on a 6,000 year approximately age of the earth and universe, and succumbed to what these scientists have peddled, which is nothing more than theories and speculations. They become their own gods, and we should follow what they have to say without questioning anything they have to say. And if you do, you're labeled as a fanatical, insane kook. Well, I think it's the other way around myself, but anyway. Many professing Christians have been taken in by the fallacious distant starlight argument and other claims involving anti-biblical assumptions. As a result, many Christians have compromised. They have attempted to add the billions of years to the Bible. One of the most common methods of trying to believe both the Bible and the billions of years is called the day-age position. In this view, the days of creation were not actually days, but rather were vast ages. So day 1 was a vast age of time. Day 2 was a fast age of time. Day 3 was a fast age of time. Day 4 was a fast age of time. Day 5 was a fast age of time. Day 6 was a fast age of time. Day 7, same thing. It could have been 1,000 years. It could have been 1,000,000 years. It could have been 10 million years for each day. In this view, the days of creation were not actually days, but rather were vast ages, many millions of years each. According to the day-age idea, God created over 6 long periods of time. It is important to point out that even if the day-age position were true, it would not bring the biblical account into alignment with the secular story of origin, since the order of events is different between the two. Recall that the Big Bang/naturalism view teaches that stars existed long before fruit trees, which came after fish. The Bible teaches that fish were made on day 5, after the stars, which were made on day 4, and after the trees were made on day 3. Regardless of how long the days were. And I think, because I'm running out of time, that's where I'll leave it tonight. Because we have to look at this day-age problem. Not brought on by the scientists, but brought on by Christians that try to find a way to agree with the secular science world so they wouldn't look foolish to the world. And at one time, myself included, fell for the trap. And we adopted these ideas, at least I can say it for myself, from listening to others and what others had to say about it, and reading a little bit about it, but not much, before I deep dive into the subject years ago and figured out that something's not right. And it starts with understanding what the Scripture says about this day-age problem. Now I could, and I will, keep proving to you why this universe and this earth is not very old. We still have to touch on several different subjects before we move on that will prove just that. But before we go any further, we have to look at this day-age problem, which is not really a problem. And you'll understand that the next time on this subject, because I'll clarify it. And why Christians got it wrong. They got sucked in to the secular viewpoints, and they begun the journey to try to justify God's Word to a secular way of thinking. Well, the two don't mix. And this ministry is here to mix it up a little bit, to turn the world upside down. If you're still interested, let me know. I'll pick it up here next time when I'm back on this subject. Play this song.